tucked away in shattered bunkers, buried under mossy soil, and locked behind archives sealed for decades, Nazi Germany's eerie technological trail isn't just a page in history. It's a thriller with chapters still unfolding. What they left behind isn't just relics, but strange creations that feel torn from the pages of a futuristic novel. These weren't fantasies dreamt up by conspiracy theorists. They were blueprints, broken prototypes, and eerie engineering marvels that dared to bend the rules of physics. And as we peel back the layers, you'll realize sometimes the past can be stranger than fiction. In the final months of World War II, American troops cracked open crates labeled E4 Unit inside a remote Bavarian farmhouse. What they discovered was far from ordinary. Photographic plates and schematics detailing a saucer-shaped machine dubbed the Hunebu II. It promised levitation through electromagnetic force, using mercury turbines instead of propellers or jet engines. Scientists back in the States pored over every line, hoping they had stumbled upon the blueprint of gravity-defying flight. The calculations were there, but the energy source? Omitted? Intentionally, perhaps. This gap sparked whispers of secret night tests echoing from the concrete rings of Prague. No disk was ever found, but decades later, microfilm duplicates surfaced in national archives, confirming one thing: this wasn't a hoax. While the machine itself remains elusive, the documents still haunt the edges of scientific credibility. If a drawing could stir this much mystery, what would a real prototype unveil? One was waiting. Not long after, a U.S. patrol scouring an Austrian mountainside stumbled upon something tangible: a fleet of 5 BA-349 Natters, hidden in timber and wartime grime. These vertical launch interceptors were designed to rocket skyward, pierce bomber formations, and dismantle themselves mid-air. The design was brilliant, but chilling. Engineers later discovered one misfiring explosive could end the pilot instantly. And still, crews silently assembled them, knowing every flight was a one-way trip. One wooden shell was shipped to America for study, revealing a cockpit barely bigger than a coffin, wedged between explosive fuel tanks. Its only luxury? A fleeting chance of survival. Today, it sits in a German museum, its flaking paint whispering memories of risk, desperation, and innovation. But what came next wasn't just grim, it was breathtaking. A quiet forest near Munich gave up its secret in the form of twisted metal buried beneath decades of soil. Loggers stumbled upon the wings of a Messerschmitt Me 262, the world's first jet-powered fighter. What started as a routine day turned into a historical excavation. The wreck matched reports of pilot Georg Huber, who went down in April 1945. As they dug, workers unearthed cannon mounts, rusting turbines, and cockpit glass melted from the crash. The smell of old jet fuel still clung to the soil, drawing in collectors like moths to a flame. Curators studying the site found evidence of desperate repairs, proof the German Air Force was cannibalizing its own tech to keep fighting. The wreckage, decades old, still pulsed with a silent energy. But buried deeper in Germany's history was a winged ghost, a whisper from the future that never took flight. Inside a forgotten mine shaft, American forces stumbled upon something that looked like it belonged in the next century: the Horten HO-229. Its design screamed science fiction: sleek curves, carbon-infused wood, and stealth characteristics before radar invisibility was even a concept. Shipped to the U.S., the prototype sat ignored until 2012, when digital scans confirmed its aerodynamic genius. A replica was built, proving it could outrun Allied fighters and fool radar below 15,000 feet. Even after decades, the frame carried the scent of diesel and resin. engineers never got to install its twin jet engines, now rusting separately. Yet, despite its unfinished state, it left a permanent mark on aviation. The curves of the HO-229 inspired future designs, proving the Nazis had indeed touched the edge of next-generation flight. Not every discovery was about aircraft. Beneath chalk cliffs near Mimoyek, Allied forces uncovered the remnants of the V-3 supergun, an underground artillery system engineered to rain steel on London. Rows of 400-foot shafts angled toward the English Channel housed an idea terrifying in its simplicity. Launch a dart every second with explosive charges lining the barrel. Allied commanders initially dismissed aerial photos, mistaking the site for ventilation structures. Only after air raids collapsed, the tunnels did the truth emerge. Inside, they found breech-loaded sections carefully preserved in waxed paper, each capable of hurling a projectile 93 miles. You don't walk away from a weapon like that. You seal it in history. Today, Walter designed a revolutionary submarine, one that sprinted underwater using hydrogen peroxide instead of diesel. The Type 17 U-boat, capable of hitting 25 knots submerged, ditched oxygen tanks in favor of peroxide that transformed into steam and pure oxygen inside a turbine. It worked. When the Allies captured U-1406, the boat still had trial paperwork ready for launch. Crews dragged her across the Atlantic, but daily peroxide venting proved hazardous. Ultimately scrapped, the design lived on. American and Soviet engineers mined Walter's data, building the next generation of fast-attack submarines. Walter, trading innovation for immunity, quietly reshaped naval warfare without ever going to court. One man's blueprint turned underwater strategy on its head. Then there's the machine no one expected, a tank that looked like a toy and spun like a top. In 1945, Soviet inspectors at Kubinka uncovered a bizarre metal sphere with slits for vision and a motorcycle engine. Dubbed the Kugelpanzer, or ball tank, it resembled something from a child's imagination. No weapons, just thick steel, radio mounts, and blackout lamps. Yet its craftsmanship suggested it came from a secret SS lab. When modern curators tried to spin it for demonstrations, children laughed, until they saw the hatch locked from the outside. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. This wasn't a toy. It was a prison on wheels, one where escape wasn't part of the mission plan. Despite years of requests and quiet pressure, the Russian government has consistently declined any interior scans of the steel orb still sitting silently in a museum corner. The vehicle remains sealed, a rolling enigma that invites theories more than answers. Analysts eventually linked it to a scrapped concept drawn up at Krupp. Designs for mobile pillboxes intended for the beaches of Fortress Europe. But those sketches vanished when the Allied forces hit the coast. And yet, here stands the Kugelpanzer, oddly real, like an echo of a forgotten idea. And even today, it draws long looks from those who wonder how close it came to seeing action. Years later, and miles away, another ghost surfaced from deep below the sea. Danish divers scanning the wreck of the Baltic wrecks were startled when their sonar revealed something unusual. A fighter plane fused atop a bomber, upside down and preserved in the cold dark. It wasn't an accident. This was one of Germany's most extreme aerial experiments, a Bf-109 mounted on a Junkers JG U-88, both turned into a single guided missile. Crude demolition charges were still in place, too dangerous to move. Authorities marked the area a no-go zone immediately. What made it even more chilling was the discovery of oxygen tanks and full cockpit instrumentation, confirming it had been mid-mission when abandoned. Soviet archives later revealed a mystery explosion offshore on the same day it was launched, most likely the bomber's final breath before vanishing beneath the surface. To this day, the wreck remains untouched, trapped by the threat it still carries. Back on land, a dusty crate mislabeled decades earlier changed everything. It was opened in a quiet corner of an old Russian facility, revealing parts of what once burned through roads faster than any other land vehicle of its time. The Opel Rock 2 – Germany's first rocket car. Long thought destroyed, its charred aluminum nose, twin graphite exhausts, and gleaming magnesium controls were unmistakable. And yet, as technicians began reassembling it, they discovered Valir's original warning protocols: asbestos gloves, flares, and shields. One test ignition even tore through protective walls 50 meters out. Today, only 1 rocket fires per day for show, but its roar is enough to silence a crowd. The idea it represents, land speed fueled by fire and steel, is alive again, with engineers even teasing a new hydrogen-powered version, one that might finally complete the legacy its creators barely lived to see. Far above the roar of cars or even jets, another forgotten marvel dreamed of breaking into space itself. The DFS-346 was more than a glider. It was a needle aimed at the heavens. Meant to be launched from a bomber, it would climb to the edge of the atmosphere and glide back at Mach 2.6. Soviet soldiers captured the unfinished fuselage in 1945 and sent it east, where it was finished under lock and key. One brave pilot nearly hit supersonic speed before losing control and ejecting at impossible altitude. He survived, barely, and so did the airframe, now scattered in a Russian hangar. But the test results? They shaped the next generation of interceptors for years. Sometimes, you don't need to launch into space to reach the future. You just need a good enough glide. And then, hidden deep in the woods of Germany, a discovery that looked like something from a Cold War thriller. A strange angular aircraft lying camouflaged under years of moss and leaf rot. At first, those who found it thought it was modern. A stealth plane, maybe. But it was far older and far more surprising. This was a prototype jet, designed in the final days of the war, meant to change the skies entirely. It never got the chance. Nature swallowed it, and only by chance did it resurface. Just think, what other legends are lying in forests like that waiting? In a different kind of hidden space, Poland's Owl Mountains offered a mystery that refuses to disappear. Beneath those steep slopes lies what some believe to be a train armored and loaded with treasures, sealed in an unfinished tunnel. Ground scans revealed a long metallic shape, suspiciously train-like, buried under rock. The area was once part of a massive railway project hastily covered in the chaos of retreat. Locals even remembered strange lights and muffled rumbling just before the war ended. But legal battles, military red tape, and fears of buried traps have kept full excavation on hold. To this day, people argue over what's down there, rusted rails or stolen riches. But one thing's certain, something lies beneath, and silence can speak louder than evidence. Far from the tunnels, a Polish farmer trying to till his land instead found history parked beneath his soil. A tank, Panther model, sat nearly intact, buried but undisturbed. Old soldiers remembered it being abandoned in winter as troops retreated through the fields. The explosion meant to destroy it only sank it deeper. When lifted, the tank's interior still smelled of oil and old radio wires. Engineers were stunned. Even chocolate bar wrappers survived inside. The machine is now a teaching artifact, showing how German industry shifted under bombing raids, with each bolt and weld telling a story of adaptation and desperation. That desperation is nowhere more haunting than in the vast underground caves of Mittelwerk. Dug into the Harz Mountains, these tunnels were home to assembly lines building the infamous V-2 rockets. Allied soldiers found them nearly untouched, rails still warm, fuselages lined like silent soldiers, and test equipment thrown aside in haste. They traced the serial numbers on some missiles straight to their London impact zones. Today, the tunnels stand as a memorial, haunted by echoes. Visitors walk past rusted guidance systems and heat-resistant nozzles found nowhere else, evidence that this site wasn't just about production. It was about pushing boundaries, no matter the cost. And still, scans detect hidden cavities, hinting at sections left completely untouched. Before the war ended, Germany toyed with a concept that blurred the line between aircraft and missile: the Reichenberg. A cockpit bolted onto a V-1, piloted by volunteers who trained in gliders, and hoped to bail just seconds before impact. One of these was found in a Dutch harbor dredge project in 2003. Its wooden seat and rusted jet pipe emerged like a time capsule. It was real. And once again, the idea lingered. Had things gone differently, these would have flown. When the news first broke, people thought it was another fabricated headline, until the confirmations came rolling in, one by one. The industry is still reeling. Just when it seemed like things had calmed down in Hollywood, a series of emotional confessions and hidden revelations cracked through the glamour, shaking fans and insiders alike. You know that feeling when a story hits so hard, it almost feels personal? This was one of those. It began with whispers, but they grew louder. Someone close to the late actor had stepped forward with a letter, handwritten and folded into the jacket pocket, found in their last known dressing room. The message wasn't angry, as he said, it didn't feel honest anymore. That comment set social media ablaze. Was he referring to the studio's new direction or to the cost of fame itself? Either way, it showed a rare moment of self-awareness, an insider pulling back the curtain on the machine. And in a twist no one predicted, a longtime comedy icon, celebrated for their light-hearted roles and infectious laugh, revealed they had been secretly funding emerging screenwriters behind the scenes for nearly a decade. Their name was never on the checks. The reason? Because stories outlive stars. That line alone gave goosebumps. It also explained how several fresh voices had managed to break through without backing from the big agencies. Hollywood might be a fortress, but sometimes kindness leaves cracks in the walls. One of the more startling moments came during the Cannes Festival circuit this year, when a young director accepted their award with an emotional thank you to a beloved actor who had passed just months earlier. They described how the actor had funded the final stages of post-production after watching a single clip on a private plane. That clip? A powerful monologue that mirrored his own early career struggles with identity and fame. And just like that, the crowd rose for a standing ovation. Not for the director, but for the memory of a performer who had given one final gift to storytelling. Now let's talk about legacy. One star who continues to leave an outsized mark is none other than the ever-enigmatic fashion-forward mogul and Oscar nominee known for their velvet suits and unpredictable role choices. Their luxurious lifestyle tells its own story. Over the years, they've owned everything from a jet black Bugatti Veyron to a custom Rolls-Royce Ghost. Their watch collection? A jaw-dropping mix of Richard Mille tourbillons and vintage Patek Philippe. Real estate-wise,